1 and 1, 28. I can't do the math, I think I'm 30 KC past because all that I can do is try and fight through it. I think I've got it, lost my mind. How did I ever go so dry? 'Cause I'm over the drop red.
Welcome to episode 246, I'm pretty sure, of the Wilderness Podcast. I am your host, Dills, and joining with me today is Mr. Trey, or is it Mr. Blob?
Whatever you prefer to call me.
Yeah, okay. Trey Blob with us again. How you doing?
Oh, pretty good.
Awesome. Well, I hope you're excited because we are talking about the Project Rebalance yet again. But this time we're talking about probably the juiciest of the dev blogs so far about this Project Rebalance. And if you're just tuning in today, we're going through this like Project Rebalance stage. Like Jagex is in this like let's nerf and buff things era. We don't see this too often at all, but they are really looking at a lot of parts of this game. So we've already talked about skilling, and we've talked about like magic offenses and like I guess damage types we talked about last episode. And now, but this episode we're talking about they're kind of dialing into some specific items and specific bosses, and they want to tweak a few things. And yeah, this one definitely has got the biggest response out of the 3 dev blogs so far. So I'm sure it's going to be fun to talk about. Yeah, but we'll get into that later. Trey, how's it going? You've been on your Iron Man grinding away, and I saw you describe it in the clan the other day when you were talking to someone who is also about to max. You're talking about how you restarted an Iron Man, and you described it as it felt like playing a New Game Plus mode, which is a really cool way of describing it. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, it's a little, and you could say it's a little inaccurate because I think most games, New Game Plus, you get to start the game with all of your previous items. So in some ways, it's actually the opposite of that. But yeah, I have been fully diving into the Iron Man still. I want to start off by issuing an official apology. I joined a month or so ago. I signed up for the TNL bingo, which is the people from the XP Waste podcast.
They're our number one competitors.
Yes. Number one competitor, biggest enemy. Just kidding, of course. Yes. I signed up for their bingo, and I was super excited for it. I signed up on my main and everything. But long story short, I got put on a team, and I was all excited for it. And then I started this Iron journey, and I think I logged on to my main for maybe an hour. During the whole bingo. I couldn't do it. I went to like Vyres for a blood shard, and that's like the only thing because I could still play my Iron. Like I logged on to my main, and I just had no interest. I just bank stood, and I was like, I could do some bossing. I don't know, but yeah. So Team 16 on the TNL bingo. If any of you listen to this podcast, I am very sorry. I tried. I could not make myself help. But yeah, it's been so fun. Like so here's the thing that I've been really kind of debating of, am I just enjoying Iron Man because Iron Man is better or whatever, or am I just enjoying the early to mid game? Is that just better? Because I think that, talking to people, about, it seems like between mains and irons alike, the consensus is really like when your goals get narrowed down to 3 mega rares from 3 raids, and those are the only things you have left to grind for, no matter what your account is, it kind of sucks. So I'm wondering if the majority of my enjoyment is just because I'm on an account where I have so many goals. And that's what feels so good about playing RuneScape for a lot of us, is just that list of goals that all tie into each other and just checking those off one by one. and finding the order to check off those goals to where it will be the most efficient, to get the thing, check off the box that will make the next box easier. And as you go through your account and when you get into the late game, you still have a lot of boxes, but for one, they become way further apart, obviously. You have hundreds of hours between checking off boxes, but also you kind of take things, you get your quest cape and then anything related to quests is checked off, and you get your diary cape and anything related to diaries is checked off. You get your max cape and then it's like just about bossing. And the game just kind of starts working its way into a smaller and smaller portion of content that you really have any need to do. So
it's a good point. Like my wife, she says she gets a lot of satisfaction when she has a checklist of a ton of little tasks she has to do. And when she goes through it and just crosses like 5 tasks off that she was able to complete within the last 2 or 3 hours. Versus, let's say you have one giant job, you're going to spend all weekend doing it. Like we were talking about this the other day, because we started gardening. And one of the first things we had to do was remove these 3 massive bushes. So that was my job, and it would take me 2 to 3 days per bush to do, and it was just a lot of work. And it didn't really feel satisfying until you got all 3 of them done. So it took me a couple weekends to do it. And whereas she was spending that time kind of just like pulling weeds out, laying down mulch, planting flowers, like all these little things that would take her, she can get multiple things done in a day. So she was talking about how satisfying it was. I was talking about how unsatisfying it was just to pull out these bushes, because you're like, holy shit, this took me 4 hours. I'm exhausted, and I still got way more to do. So, it's a good point. If I could just like tie it into what we're going to be talking about later, I think that's why we have this rebalance change. So one of the things that we're going to be talking about in a little bit when we go through this dev blog is like drop rates. They want to look at some of the drop rates of these grinds that happen in the end game, because when you look at, Chambers of Xeric, I think somebody said it's about 20 hours before you can expect a purple, depending on group size and how well you're doing in Chambers of Xeric. That's a long time. Like, to spend 20 hours working on one piece of content before you see something kind of exciting, that could take me 10 days. If I only have 2 hours each evening to work on it.
I ask myself a lot, what's broken in my brain that I don't get the same satisfaction from working on actual construction as I do working on construction with pixels in a video game. I wish I could spend all weekend doing some project and just sit back and feel good about it, in the same way that I do with, getting a drop. I don't know, maybe I need to fix that.
That's fair, but it's also just like really hard to like feel motivated knowing you've got this huge grind ahead of you. I'm playing my main. I'm grinding out some of the Desert Treasure 2 bosses. It really kind of hurts my mentality, I guess, my motivation, knowing that, you got to kill this thing, maybe about 700 times before you can expect to see the item that you want to see. That's like, that's daunting. That's really hard to be like, I'm excited to do this. I do like 5 kills and I'm like, ugh, this isn't going to be worth it. The feeling I get from that ring, I don't know if it's going to warrant the time it takes to kill this thing 700 times. And I think that's why we start looking at, for me too, I get burnt out from my main and I start looking at other accounts. Well, what if I just jump on this new Iron Man where I can get excitement over a Rune Scimitar, which maybe takes me maybe an hour, probably less, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and the Rune Scimitar is maybe like a 1 in 50 drop. So even if you go 4 times dry for it, that's still only 200 kills you have to do, and it's not this, you're not grinding the same thing for months and months trying to get the one item, even if you do go super dry.
Mm-hmm.
But
like this update kind of opened a can of worms, but we're going to get into it because people pitch these ideas like dry protection to prevent you from going dry. And again, Jagex is looking at some of these drops. So we're going to be talking about the Nightmare drop table, the Dragon Warhammer drop rates and that sort of stuff. because yeah, they can be a little nasty. How's your Iron Man been going?
Great. Yeah, no, I'm trying to like do at least a couple quests every day. Just because, you know, I know there's like the efficient way of playing, and there's the, you know, there's a lot of different paths you can take. I think generally Iron Man, you know, rush like Zora and stuff like that. And obviously with my kind of personality, I've always been more worried about like my base skills. So I got like base 30s and now I have base 40s, trying to get like, you know, easy and medium achievement diaries. Like I really like to just play the game, like have my account in such a style where like I have this ever growing foundation where everything, like this solid foundation where everything is slowly growing up instead of just having one area of my account really high up and focusing on that. So yeah, I've been trying to just do quests and do like whatever kind of like whatever my lowest skill at the moment is, been focusing on that. And yeah, I'm now my next goal is base 50s. So yeah, I'm working on some of my lower level ones, but I've really been enjoying, you know, I finally got to the Hunter rumors from Varlamore, and yeah, it feels like kind of feels like the Guardians of the Rift of Hunter in a way, because when I did Guardians of the Rift, I couldn't believe how fast that was compared to what it was back in the day, and that's how the Hunter rumors feel like. It doesn't, yeah, it just that feeling of like I hate this grind is kind of like significantly lessened, and I guess that is a sign of good content. Where
What's really cool too, and like I've always thought this way with Iron Man, is like I'm not super in a rush to play a regular Iron Man because I know the longer I wait, the more there's going to be to do on an Iron Man. And it's kind of like what you're talking about, where it's almost more sandboxy for irons now, because I remember when I first started playing it, there was like one path that was super optimal. You know, you rush Wintertod, you grind out Wintertod to get a bunch of early supplies, and then you just start questing through the optimal quest order. That was kind of like it, but now we have like Guardians of the Rift, we have Temperos, we still have Wintertod, and now we have like the Varlamore rumors, the hunting rumors. So it's like all these like little skilling activities will still net you some like nice resources early on. And it just seems more sandboxy. You don't need to just go do Wintertod now. Not like you needed to before, but if we're talking about efficiencies, now you can go to Varlamore and do some hunting instead right away. It's really cool. It feels, yeah, it's like the longer you wait, the more fun a new Iron Man will be.
Yeah, and
you don't want to just wait
and
50 years.
Maybe I don't know, a couple episodes from now, whenever we get to Varlamore Part 2, that same thing will be said about Herblore. Yeah, they're just kind of, they're trying to, I mean, it really seems like the entire goal of Jagex in 2024 is to find the kind of dead pockets in this game of like these areas of training and fill those in and make them better. And I love that. I think before something as big as like sailing comes out, you know, I've been saying whenever they said new skill, it's like, well, let's make sure that the existing skills are good before we add a whole new one in. And that was why I was against a new skill, but it seems like their goal is to do both. I mean, they've done this project Rebalance and they're still pushing forward on sailing. So yeah, hopefully by the time it comes out, every skill feels good. I think there's obviously still some of those pockets. You know, the wiki still has smithing is still recommended 40 to 99 is, you know, gold at the blast furnace. And that feels like that's, you know, one of those, I think if any skill has 40 to 99, something needs to be looked at there.
Not even just that. If there's like, what can I do to train this skill I'm actually going to enjoy, and it's not going to make me feel like I'm just like working, I guess.
Yeah.
It's nice that we're starting to see something for every skill kind of pop up.
Yeah, no, it feels good. I mean, there is definitely a part of me that wants to just take Guardians of the Rift to 99 rune crafting, then go take Temperos to 99 fishing and Wintertod 99 fire making, Hunter rumors, and then just have this, massive stockpile of kind of raw resources that I can use for the game and stuff. Like something as simple as like Renar's, like obviously that's huge for an Iron Man to have as many prayer potions as possible, because that's obviously something that's a lot harder to come by. And yeah, that's like one of the number one items that you get given, or just herbs in general is one of the number one things you get given from those mini games as loot. And it's really nice.
Yeah, that is awesome. Sounds like it's been a good time. I've also been playing an Iron, actually. It's funny, the thing I was like taking notes for this episode, and I kind of wrote this like little cycle I tend to go through that I've noticed. And you kind of just explained it like the exact. I go through like exactly how I explained it earlier on, but like I noticed that I play my main. I get stuck on these grinds that are quite lengthy, and I'll chip away, but then something happens where like I've been at it for a while, but I'm not really seeing the return yet. You got to commit, especially those Desert Treasure 2 bosses, but happens with raiding as well. I can't just like send raids all day. So sometimes it takes me like 2 weeks to see a purple. And that is anyway, sometimes it can, the excitement of doing a raid can kind of fade away a little bit as you're waiting for that purple to show up, because raiding is fun, but you need that purple to really remind you of like, oh yeah, this is why we're doing it. So I noticed that I hadn't been really being rewarded for some of my PVMing lately, and then I was getting a little bit bored on the main, which tends to happen. And then when that happens, I look at one of my mini accounts and I go, do I want to play any of these? And one of them that was appealing to me a lot was my 807 Iron Man, which is basically this type of account. It's quite popular. There's a fair bit of people who play it, but it's an Iron Man account that you only do combat on it. You do no skilling, just combat plus Slayer, and you kind of have to figure out how to get all your stuff done that way. So I've been playing that a lot, and it's been a lot of fun because you can get food resources quite easily. You go to the Warriors Guild, you got your potatoes there, which are very cheap. In terms of like prayer potions and stuff, it's a little bit hard to come by, but I've been a little bit wilderness locked on this account, just going to the wildy, doing wildy slayer and all that sort of stuff, because you get a lot of like, you get PK'd a lot, and it can be very frustrating. Man, I got smited. Who the hell smites someone for their friggin' power amulet? That's a dick move. Anyways, I brought it out there and I thought there's no way someone's gonna smite me, and instantly got smited. And I've already gotten PK'd twice now and lost both my power amulets. And it's a bitch to get. The only way I can get a power amulet, I think, is from the crazy archaeologist in the wilderness. I need to get a rune crossbow anyway, so I'm out there killing them every now and then. But no rune crossbow and no third power amulet. But I'm locked straight into the wilderness. And one of the pieces of content that is kind of new to the game, we didn't even really talk about it, but it was added to the game, to the wilderness. And I'll be honest, I don't know who asked for it, because it's cool. Sorry, I gotta bring this up. I gotta bring up the wiki for this one. It's the friggin' zombie pirates. Have you tried this content?
Oh yeah, that was huge. I mean, I also was kind of unaware of it, and but then somebody said that's like a way to get your dragon scimitar early and easy. And yeah, it was great. Because it's right next to an altar, and you can avert all damage. And it's crazy there. There's a ton of people there constantly. It's super popular.
I don't know why they added this. And like, this is like the high risk, high reward. They're going to nerf this. I can almost guarantee you they're going to nerf it. So guys, if you're hearing this, if you're playing like a low level account, or maybe you're playing an Iron Man, or especially like an 807, you got to check out Zombie Pirates. The money there is so cracked out. So the way an 807 makes a lot of their money in the early game is at Ogrish Shamans, because they can drop like rune full helmets, medium helmets, rune battle axes, that sort of stuff. So it's not even great money, because you got to kill a lot of them before you start getting, enough rune items that you can alch them, and you're sitting there with a nice chunk of cash. So I would be just killing it all day for days. That's all I would do, is just Ogrish Shamans. And it would just take me a long time to make 300k. Anyways, I'm doing Wilderness Slayer. I get a pirate task and I go, oh, maybe I'll go kill some zombie pirates. Maybe I got a zombie task. Anyways, I got a task and I was able to kill the zombie pirates. I went to go check it out, and they were dropping rune items on average every 3 kills. Every 3 kills, I was getting like 20k plus a bunch of other stuff. It was unreal. I was making like, I'd spend 20 minutes there and I would make like 350k, and I'd be like level 50, like a really low level. These guys are like level 30s that you're killing. They're level like 30. It's insane. I see right here, the average kill is 5k, which like doesn't sound like a lot, but again, these are super low levels. And it's just insane. I don't know why they added this, because it's just like, it's such easy and good money. And sure, it brings PKers out, but like, whatever. But they drop these other things called the like zombie pirate keys. And I guess we as RuneScape players, do we love getting keys? It seems like it. We'll get keys that you can go open up like a zombie pirate locker. And those are worth like 30k a pop on average. So you can get yourself a shit ton of resources and a shit ton of items. It's crazy. And okay, I just want to talk about one other thing, because this does kind of tie in what we're talking about. They also added this unique item called the teleporting anchoring scroll. And Trey, it's just like you mentioned, it's over at the Chaos altar, not the Chaos temple where you bury your bones, but it's at where the Elder Chaos Druids are. And if you've been there, you might remember that the Chaos Druids will just like teleport you randomly. And it's really friggin' annoying if you're meleeing them, especially, because then you're having to run around a bunch. And it's also a pain in the ass if you have to keep getting your prayer up, because they just teleport you away, and it's just a pain in the ass to get back to the altar. But this teleporting scroll, you use it on yourself and they won't teleport you anymore. But what's crazy, it's a 1 in 20,000 drop. That's like a do they want people to grind that out? I don't understand. That's so high. 1 in 20,000. So, and this kind of comes into like what we're going to be talking about. I feel like I've said this like 4 times. Guys, I didn't get much sleep last night. My kid doesn't fucking sleep. I don't know what's wrong with him. I know I just like did a hard pivot, but my brain is mush. He wakes up every friggin' night at like 3 a.m. and we have to tuck him back in, and it's like a 20-minute process, but it's just like brutal. And then he wakes up at like 5 a.m. and he's like, just wants to get up and go rage. It's insane. So if you've got a kid that sleeps really well, oh my God, just be so grateful about that. But yeah, like, this dry protection that we're going to talk about later that somebody pitched, some of these items having this like insane drop rate. We just keep seeing stuff like this. 1 in 20,000. I see that drop rate and I'm like, okay, so Jagex doesn't really want anyone going for this item. What's the point? Like, why is it so high? That's insane, but whatever. Anywho. PSA though, go grind out some zombie pirates. Do be careful, you will get PK'd there. You will get PK'd pretty fast, I bet. But it's still worth it, because you'll get some strings where you just like spend like 20 minutes there and you walk out with 500k worth of alchables. It's nuts.
Yeah, I feel like a good.
Anyways,
I feel like I feel like good advice just in general for wildy content is just like, before you go out there, kind of set in your own mind like a price. Like, I'm comfortable losing 300k, and then you have to actually stick to that when you're out there and be like, okay, I have 300k loot right now. I need to bank. I know when I was going hard on the wildy bosses, I would kind of set myself, like I would only let myself take a certain amount of like food and prayer potions, because it was the Ursine chain mace. I would only put like 200 charges in it, because I knew that by the time, because you never want to leave those bosses because they just keep giving you resources. It's a really great like game design to make you want to just stay there, because you keep getting more resources and the kills are going so fast and you're just feeling good and you don't want to leave and you're just building up all this loot. So yeah, I would have like 200 charges in my chain mace so that I had to leave. because when you run out, that weapon's basically useless. And so, yeah, just advice to anybody, set yourself a limit, and then you actually have to stick to it when it comes time to leave, because you're going to get PK'd. It's just a matter of time.
And like, I love that they did this, but it can if you're not someone who likes to get PK, then you could get salty about this. But Jagex has like made wilderness mobs, they drop a lot of resources. So you get like, you can convince yourself, oh, I'll just stay for one more kill. I got so much more food. Like it just dropped it dropped like 3 super restores. Hell, I'll stay for another kill. I'm resupplied now. And then you're going to get PK'd and lose 4 mil that you have stashed in your looting bag.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing about the wilderness pirates in particular, that it is, if you get PK'd, you're not going to survive. Like you're not going to have an easy time getting away, because you can't change your protection prayers, because you're also constantly getting hit by the chaos druids are hitting you with magic. So you have to have protect from magic on the whole time. And so if you get PK, they can just sit, on range or melee, and you can't pray against them. So yeah, you're dead meat. So you just got to bank strategically.
One thing that I love, so like, I've definitely mentioned this a bunch on the podcast, but the wilderness is my favorite place in the game, because like the dynamic is like so unique. Like the vibe, you can't find anything else like it in RuneScape. You can't find anything else like it in most video games. It's just like super hardcore. You die, you lose your items that you've worked for. That's insane. Like most MMOs don't have anything like that, because they know how bad it feels for that to happen, which is why I love the wilderness so much. It has so much like emotion attached to it when something happens. But one of the things that I love about the wilderness is, if I'm on my main, I always bring anti-PKing gear, because just the rush of fighting back, you'd be surprised by how often you can get a kill or almost a kill, or you fighting back causes the PKer to like their brain to completely stop functioning properly. A lot of the times PKers don't expect it. And myself as a PKer, I've had it happen where you're like fighting someone, you think it's going to be easy, and then they turn around with like a DDS and they start DDSing you, and you're like, shit, I need to like not die, and I need to kill him. I thought I was just having to worry about killing him. It can really throw you off. And it feels so good when it happens, and it makes the fights that when you get jumped so much more intense. But being locked on my iron as well, the same excitement happens when you can outplay the PKer. They're going to get you, and you do some sort of move to get away. You feel like such a boss. Like it feels, oh gosh, there's like nothing else like it in the game. I was at Black Demons. Sorry, Trey, do you have an anecdote to jump in with?
I have a story after your story. Go ahead.
Okay. I'll make it quick. I'm at the Black Demons, which, by the way, playing on a low-level account is like playing this game on slow motion, because it literally was taking me 4 minutes to kill a friggin' Black Demon. So annoying. And I had like a 200 KC task to get through. So I'm in the Wilderness Cave, and I'm just safe spotting them, and I've broken their aggro timer so I could like run into the Black Demons and they won't touch me. And I had this PKer jump me, and I was like, fuck, I'm dead. Like, I don't even know what to do. I can't run away in time. They've tele-blocked me. But then I was like, wait a minute. I wonder if I could pull them into the Black Demons. It was a pure with 1 defense. So I ran into where the Black Demons were, pulled the pure in, and like 4 Black Demons jumped on the pure and almost killed them. They had to teleport out. And I felt so good. Like I was like, holy shit. Like I came up with this like quick plan on the spot. It worked, and it caused them to teleport. Like I outsmarted the PKer. Man, I mean, that was a boost to the RuneScape ego. Like I felt like, holy shit, like I can't believe that worked. And you felt so good. I just went back to killing it.
That's awesome.
I tried to pull it off again later on, and it didn't work. I got killed. But still, the first time was great. Anyways, Trey, what happened to you?
So I had a much less big brain idea, but no, I was doing Wilderness Slayer on my Iron Man, and I got a Laren's key, and I was having some RuneLight issues. I think it was, every time there's like a weekly update, your RuneLight's always a little janky for a little bit. And I was messing with my Laren, like my ground items, because I've been changing them up on the Iron Man. Like I completely turned off all of the like GE value of everything, so that items are just items. And it kind of changes your whole mindset. Anyways, I was messing with Laren's keys because I wanted them to be highlighted, and I didn't like the color that ground items highlighted. So I kept dropping it and then like looking at the color of how it looked on the ground, completely forgetting that I was in the wilderness, and when you dropped items, they show up immediately. And so this guy ran up to me, this PKer ran up to me, and he was like, I had just dropped a Laren's key and picked it back up, and he said, "I'll let you live if you give me that Laren's key." And I was like, kind of like, yeah, that sounds good. That's fair. And I went to drop the Laren's key, and I just had this moment of like, wait a minute, I'm just talking. I've just been standing here talking to this guy. So I just logged out, and I felt so bad because I was like, that guy will never give anyone a second chance ever again. And, but it was also, I felt smart, but I kind of felt guilty about it.
You betrayed the PKers' trust.
I know. Yeah. They're such a big cornerstone of our society, and they are, upholding the peace, and we love our PKers.
You get fun interactions with wilderness. A lot of PKers just are like the worst. They're the friggin' worst. Yeah. I'm on my iron right now, and I'm parked at sand crabs. It's the same people. The people who are PKing are friggin' doing sand crabs. I'm sitting at my spot with 3 to 4 sand crabs, and some friggin' dude just shows up, just stands right on top of me, and then we both pretend to be AFK. So we're like being stubborn, and I'm like, I'm not moving. You better move. And I know he's thinking, I'm going to pretend I'm AFK, and he better move. So we spend 20 minutes where neither of us is getting experience, and we're both just sitting there being stubborn. And I'm like, man, there's a spot free right there. It's like 5 tiles over, the same amount of crabs, just go there. And they don't do it. It's the worst friggin' people at sand crabs. It happens. I've been at sand crabs a lot this week. It just happens every friggin' day. Anyways, those type of people, they're also in the wilderness. So you gotta be careful because you gotta deal with a bunch of friggin' idiots. But you have some fun interactions. I was doing Chaos Bones last week, and this person comes up, starts attacking me. I start whining, being like, oh no, my big bones, don't kill me. And then the PK was like, I will give you I can't remember, it was like 15 seconds to bury as much as you can. I was like, perfect. I got them all done in that time, and then they killed me. But I was like, that was fun. I should have logged. I should have just logged out now that I think about it.
Yeah, that's
I bum
awesome.
rushed those bones.
I do feel like the majority of PKers I've run into, like I feel like they want to kill every single bot, and they want to kill most mains. But generally speaking, I feel like they understand what killing an Iron Man means. So unless they're really, unless they're really in it for taking happiness away from other people, which a lot of PKers are, but if they're just kind of in it to make money, they don't usually spare Iron Men, but I feel like they feel a little bad about it.
Sometimes I have had some people realize I was an iron or some wacky iron, and they jump off and they go like, yeah, keep doing what you're doing, dude. And like, it's always surprising. Yeah, there's some nice people out there. Well, Trey, before we move on to the actual news, I had a real life advice question to ask you. For anyone who might be tuning in for the first time, Trey has I don't know, is it fair to say somewhat of a background in life advice? I don't know what you would call it. That's life coach.
That's the lore we've established, so we're sticking with it.
Okay. Right. He's got like not quite level 99, but he's got like a level maybe like 82 in life advice, which is pretty good. We'll take it. So I've started gardening. I mentioned that earlier, and I kind of opened up this whole, green thumb world that I'm discovering. And I learned a lot about compost recently. So I've started my own little compost bin where we throw compost waste. And then the idea is you wait 3 months, it'll turn into like this type of dirt. Well, it's just compost, but it looks like dirt. And then you can sprinkle it on your vegetables and all that sort of stuff. It's not like seasoning on your vegetables, but you put it on your allotment where you've planted your stuff. You pour out the compost, and it's really good. One thing that I've read about in this composting group that I'm in is that it's actually a really good practice to pee on your compost, because you need to pull in nitrogen, And your pee is really rich in nitrogen, especially that first pee in the morning. They say if you can, the first pee you do, you do it outside on your compost. It will love it, and it'll help the whole process like immensely. So that sounds great. Like I'm totally down. I love peeing outside. It's way better than peeing inside. But the problem is like I've got neighbors all around me. I've got one neighbor on either side of me, left and right, and I've got 3 neighbors on the back end of me. Right. So it's like it's about 6 houses and we're all in this like little box together with our backyards tied in. And I can't figure out a way to pee on my compost without neighbors like having the chance at seeing. And I'm also worried they're not going to understand if they see me peeing on my compost. The other thing I've thought of is what if I peed inside in like a bucket? But now that's like a lifestyle that I don't know if I'm ready to embark on, where I'm peeing in buckets in my house, because I feel like that could be a slippery slope where next thing you know, I'm like, well, why am I even getting up to go to the bathroom? Why don't I just get up and pee in the bucket next to my bed? So I don't know what to do. It's I'm trying to figure out what's good short term and also long term that's not going to make me into the type of person who is peeing in a bucket at 12 o'clock at night next to their bed. I don't want to do that.
Well, this is you've come to the right person. So
This feels like level 82 advice. Like
I am uniquely qualified in peeing outside. I will say that. So I did. I was a part of a landscaping company for about 10 years, and I got very good at finding places to pee in residential neighborhoods because I had to.
Yeah, the homeowners won't let you inside.
No, and yeah, you're not going to drive the truck and trailer all the way over to the gas station 10 times a day to pee, especially like those fall months when you're working and it starts to get real cold out, and you drink your big coffee in the morning. You got to pee every 5 minutes. So yeah, I had some. Oh yeah. I found some good spots, but I remember one time specifically. I was peeing on the side of this house, and there was this one bush that was like protecting me from the road. And I was like, this is the sketchiest place I've ever peed. And yeah, but I mean, compost, in essence, compost is just worm poop. They eat whatever you throw out there, they poop it out, and it's a nice, like, varied nutrient. And so, I mean, peeing on what's already poop it makes a lot of sense. Wow. I heard myself say that sentence, and I just realized this podcast is really degenerated, but your
partner is like listening to in the background, like, wait, I thought this was about a video game.
Yeah. She walks by and hears me say, so you're peeing on the poop. But yeah, no, I'm fully on board with it. I think that, I think we can both agree peeing outside is one of the greatest joys of being a human, or I guess being a man. But
it's tough because I think if a guy saw me, they'd be like, okay, I get it. But I'm worried if I feel like if a woman saw me, they wouldn't understand as much.
Yeah, no,
I don't know.
I mean, without getting into like the super specifics of like the layout of your yard, I think if you're facing, like, I think there's a big difference between if somebody sees from the back that you're peeing, like, that's weird, as opposed to actually if somebody sees the source of you peeing, that feels a lot worse. But I think my best advice is like, send it. Cause I don't know.
Send it.
I don't know what the laws are up there. I don't know how much trouble you could get into is it even public urination at that point if you're on your own property? I don't know.
Yeah, I know. It's like in a way, like, why are they looking at me? Like, is it if they're staring at me peeing in my backyard, is that no different than them like having binoculars and looking through my bathroom window while I'm using the washroom? Like, if anything, that's like, I should be calling the cops or something.
I would love to hear that case in court. Your Honor, it's actually their fault. They are the ones who should be in trouble here. They were watching me pee.
Then the judge is like, oh, your compost? Dude, I understand. I do it every day. It's crazy. Man, compost is wild. So one thing I've learned is that like the bacteria, it's like right in the middle of your compost pile. The bacteria, which is breaking everything down, it causes your compost pile to heat up, which is interesting. I've seen something where like the compost pile it was so hot it caught on fire. I don't know what was going on there, but it was just a video I saw. But I've been going to this compost this compost facility, and like everyone is just peeing on the compost piles. I'm just kidding. No, that's not doesn't happen. But there are these giant compost piles that I can just get free compost from, and I'll get my shovel and I'll do a shovel right in the middle, and there's steam and like coming off the compost. Like it's a steamy one. So maybe people are peeing on it, but like it's just kind of wild to see that. You're like, holy shit! Like it's heating up so much you can visibly see it. That's wicked. It's very cool stuff.
Yeah, no, we the house where I grew up in, we had a big garden, and yeah, it was very normal to just take out we had a little bucket, and we would take out all of our banana peels and apple cores and stuff. And it, to this day, I feel wrong when I have a banana peel and I throw it in a trash can. It just, it feels unnatural.
Yeah. It feels like we had cucumbers on sale. So we bought like 12 of them, which is way too many cucumbers for 2.5 people to eat. But I was like, you know what? Whatever we don't eat, we'll just be compost. It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Recycle.
Anyways, we have a lot of fun stuff to talk about. Should we get right into it? Or is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, I don't have anything I want to talk about, but I would like to go pee real quick. Speaking of peeing.
Oh, yeah. Send that over here. We'll be right back.
Okay.
Let's talk about the changes we're seeing. So yeah, Project Rebalance. They've titled this one to be Project Rebalance Item and Combat Adjustments. So they've been looking at a few different sections of the game, and they want to make some tweaks to some specific items, do some rebalancing there, but they also want to look at some drop rates and do a little bit of rebalancing there. So let's just read it through how the dev blog has it laid out. So this all kind of started with magic. And they made the reference to, last episode we talked about the magic elements balancing. So like there's going to be some monsters weak to air, some weak to earth spells, and all that sort of jazz. And they wanted to kind of take it a step further. They thought that this was a great change that they're like looking forward to implementing. But they still understand that like magic is in this really weird place because magic attacks are already capped. So like for the most part, just the way that they created the skill, your air blast is never going to do more than 2 damage. Or sorry, your air strike is never going to do more than 2 damage. It does 1 to 2 damage. But I think at some point between when magic was created or like the foundation of it was set and, in more recent years, they realized, well, it's weird to have your magic attacks capped. We need to find a way to do more damage. So they brought out a lot of items that gave you percentage increase, like percentage damage increase. So like we have things like the occult necklace, which is like a flat 10% increase to your damage for magic spells. So that was their way of kind of fixing it. And I think they're kind of realizing that like it's a little bit dicey, but it is what it is for now. So the first thing that they're talking about here are like these item adjustments. So we're going to be looking at a lot of the magic gear we have, and they're going to be kind of redistributing how the percentage the damage percentage increase, I can't even say it, works for different armors. Because right now it's mostly, we have Virtus and we have Ancestral in terms of our magic robes that give us extra damage, but that's it. So it means that like Arums and Infinity and Dagonhigh, like all these other sets that just give you magic accuracy, they're like significantly worse than all the other types, like significantly worse than Ancestral and Virtus. So they want to fix that by like giving a lot of robe sets some magic damage increase. So, basically all of it. We're looking at Arums, Infinity, Dagonhigh, Blue Moon Armor, Elder Chaos, Druid, Bloodbark, that sort of stuff. So it's no longer going to be that when you hit Virtus magic robes or Ancestral, that's where you finally start seeing the first of your percentage increase. We're seeing it a little bit earlier as well. But they're also nerfing some gear as well. So like the occult necklace, I just mentioned it, but it's at 10%. Whereas Ancestral pieces are actually 2% per piece. So an occult necklace is way better than a full ancestral set, which is crazy because full ancestral is like 200 mil, maybe even more, whereas the occult necklace isn't even 1 mil. So the occult necklace was like the first item that had the magic damage increase. So that's why it's so high. I guess they just didn't know what to do. But a lot of people agreed that like it was kind of weird that the necklace was so much higher than any other magic equipment. So anyways, they just want to rebalance it. So they're going to be bringing down the occult necklace, but they're going to be spreading out some of the lack of damage increase from that to a bunch of other magic robes. And then there's on top of that, we're gonna see that across the board with magic in general. So like the internal boots, your magic boots are gonna see an increase. We're gonna see an increase with some of the magical offhands and shields, and same with the rings and not spells, prayers. Which I don't know. What do you think of this? Or Trade, have you seen what others thought about this?
Yeah, it was interesting. So there's kind of two different types of arguments, and I think one of them is valid, and I think one of them is not valid. And it's hard to kind of parse out sometimes between which is which. So I think that there's the bad argument, in my opinion, is the one where people are saying, I'm so used to this being the way it is. I'm so used to being able for my tormented bracelet and my occult necklace to be like 90% of my magic damage. So for like switches and stuff, this is all I need. Basically I'm used to the broken state of the game. And I don't think that that's a valid argument. And then the other side of it is the people who are saying, I've ran the numbers and this is, the math that neither you or I really super get too hard into. But, the people who are into those kind of things are saying, I've run the numbers and in this situation, it's a objective nerf. And I think something that a lot of people were saying is it actually widened the gap. People talk a lot about how the shadow is so like broken and so overpowered. And a lot of the statistics I was seeing were saying that actually widened that gap. And so without shadow, you were getting less DPS and you were getting more DPS with a shadow. But once again, these are the kind of things that I see, and I kind of have to take people at their word because I haven't run those numbers myself. But I think that those people are worth listening to. And the people at the super high end of the game who see, they see RuneScape like the Matrix, where they just see a bunch of numbers and stuff. I think those people are worth listening
with
to.
A bunch of numbers.
Yeah, it is, and
with like a tick, like a metronome going on in the background.
I think that's always an important demographic to listen to with any content in the game, because the people who do there's a demographic of people who play this game 10 hours like every single day. And I don't think that they should be making all of the decisions, but I do think that their opinions have validity because they have probably done this content more than anybody else. We'll come back to those type of people when we talk about drop rates, but so I think that there were some valid concerns, but I do think there was a lot of people saying like, please don't nerf the occult. It's so nice. I just got the Slayer level to get one, and stuff like that. But yeah, it makes a lot of sense when you look at it more objectively, which I think Jagex is trying to do, where they're saying like, this is ridiculous that this, like you were saying, ancestral. And, and it's funny because this is the kind of stuff that we like as, someone, both of us are kind of in that higher level community. And we're also kind of in a position where we're talking, in the clan and stuff, we're helping newer players. And this is exactly the things we've been telling lower level players, for years. Is like, all you need is like an occult, like ancestral is overrated. It only gives you this much damage percentage. And so like, this is what we're telling them. The game is designed in such a way where these super expensive things are very incremental upgrades, but these inexpensive, a cult necklace is like $500K. And that is a symptom of a very poorly balanced, area of the game. And so, yeah, it's like, yes, this is broken and we've been taking advantage of this for years. and I do think it's good that it's being changed. Nerfs never feel good. You know, I was fully on board with the Fang nerf, and then I went to go kill Vardorvis with my whip, and I was just like, man, miss having the Fang here. But I was fully on board with it because that's the way the game should be. The Fang shouldn't have worked there on Slash. It makes no sense. But it's nice getting away with it, you know?
It's hard to like step back and think about like, well, this is going to affect me directly, but I know it's good for everyone. You know what I mean? Like, yes. I don't know. Like most people aren't going to be okay with just like paying more taxes for something, even if it will help other people, like will help the public. We're not going to get into the nitty gritty of it. But most people aren't just going to be like, yeah, I'm okay with just like not having as much money. It's like the same thing. It reminds me of like the first Project Rebalance with the blowpipe. The blowpipe was just like so good. It was like a machine gun, and it was like the best weapon in the game. It was even better than the T-bow at some places. And they wanted to nerf a bunch of range stuff, including the blowpipe. A lot of people were scared about it and they weren't happy with it. So they did nerf it. They brought out the Bofa to act as this bridge, but we don't really see the blowpipe in a lot of like, you know, high level PVM stuff. You're not really bringing it as like it used to be the main weapon. Now it's kind of like this backup weapon for killing mobs and killing specific things that have low defense. But like it takes a bit of an adjustment because, you know, just like the occult costs 600K and it's the best magic damage increase outside of, you know, a weapon. The blowpipe only costs like 2 mil, and it allowed someone to go do the hardest PVM content with it. So it takes a bit of an adjustment, but they're looking at it for the long term. So they would never be able to bring out Missouri or Dazana's, I think was it called Dazana's Quiver, or like any new range gear we get wouldn't really be able to happen because a blowpipe would have been way too strong. And I think Jagex is worried something similar is going to happen with the Shadow, where we're like, how do we bring any more magic equipment that's not going to just like cause the Shadow to be this crazy powerhouse of a weapon? Yeah,
it's a hard. I mean, it's a hard task. I mean, nobody is ever excited about a nerf, and
we're not really used to it on RuneScape. Like we get it so rarely. Whereas like World of Warcraft, I remember every update that came out. They were rare. They came out like once a month or something. But every update in World of Warcraft had some nerfs tied to it. So like that was more constant. Whereas we get them once every few years. It seems like.
Yeah,
so and it's a big deal.
I do think that, I don't know. I think that people, there's so much, I'm trying to think of the right way of wording it. Like there's so much underlying resentment towards Jagex that's built up from, you know, probably from EOC days and quitting RuneScape 3. And there's so many people that like, yeah, every little thing, if they change, is just like, oh, this is all over again. Here we go again. And, you know, it's like, they're just moving some numbers around. Like, I get that this is going to change the meta. But I think, one of the most interesting conversations I thought was around the Eternal Boots, because I was like in favor of that from the perspective of giving those boots value, you know, because if you've done, you know, if you know PVM, you know that when you get there's 3 sets of boots you get from Cerberus, and the primordial boots are the only one of those 3 that's really used. The Pegasian boots and the Eternal boots are kind of like only in certain situations where you need accuracy, but they don't give any damage boost. So I was always like, yeah, let's give a damage boost to those, so they'll be in these best in slot setups. But then, you know, people breaking down how they didn't want to have to bring a boot switch into raids. And then my response to that was like, well, you know, it was almost like a get good thing. It was like, well, if you want that extra damage, then it's a little extra, you know, higher risk, higher reward kind of a thing. But then, you know, kind of breaking down like legitimately, like how with a 8-way switch or I don't even know if I'll say the right words for it, but essentially they were breaking down how it's like almost symmetrical when you have an even number switch, how you do it, and having those boots would throw the whole thing off. And I don't know, it was just really interesting.
Yeah, I get that.
But I think that really goes to show how hard this is, because giving that magic damage makes something valuable and gives people one more item that's worth money and one more thing to grind for. Then that's what this whole game is about. But it also can throw off the whole balance of everything. And I think that,
and like, I was gonna say, when you get to that level of play, if you can bring a switch, someone's going to bring it as a switch. You look at like the best TOB players, and they bring 27 items to do as switches with one potion.
Yeah,
that's insane.
Yeah, no, I guess the point I'm trying to make is just that it's very hard. I mean, balance is very hard. I think the majority of this entire project Rebalance, I think the majority of it has been great. I think that for what the task that they're kind of setting out for, of rebalancing almost the entire game, I think it's an overall positive. This magic spot here has been the most like kind of, I don't even want to say controversial. I guess controversial, but it's brought up the most drama, the most pushback, which once again,
the magic you think has.
Oh yeah, more than anything I've seen so far. I mean, this was the one where,
interesting.
I mean, they changed it twice, right? They had their initial proposal, and then they came back with a second proposal, and then they came back with a third proposal because of how much feedback they were getting. Which is like, yeah, you never want. I never enjoy the controversy or the drama in the community, but it does reinforce like the uniqueness of this game, where it's like we had these rebalances, and I know there's a lot of people who think that anything that gets pulled is going to automatically pass. But it is kind of cool that like when they did something that a lot of people thought was bad for the game, then people did push back and they listened and did change some things around. And there were some areas where they said, no, we like with the occult, I think they, obviously with the occult, there was a lot of people who said, don't change it. We like it the way it is. And Jagex was like, they put their foot down. They said, okay, in this instance, we really believe this is good for the game and we're going to push forward with it. But they were taking in the community's feedback. And I just think that's really great for the game. And I think that's really cool that we still have that.
It's really important. It just like shows that they're more in touch with their game, because like they're only doing this for the health of the game. I don't think they're doing this so that they can like bring out like I'm sure they don't have something like malicious intended. Well, we're going to nerf it, but then we're going to bring out the microtransaction shop where you can apply stat boosts to the weapons to bring them up to where they used to be. Like, that would be sketchy, but that's not going to happen. They're doing this so that they can bring out new weapons. They can bring out new bosses without us worrying. Because again, if I could relate this to other video MMORPGs, a lot of the time they bring out like a new expansion and then all your gear is just moot. It's just like trash gear. You got to grind out all your stuff again. Everything's just garbage. Or what they do is they keep doing like a power creep until the numbers you're hitting like 4 billion per hit at level 60. You're not even max level yet. So then they go, let's just squish down the numbers. We're going to chop off a few zeros of everything in the game, and then we will just, it's more reasonable. Instead of hitting 4 billion, you're only hitting 4 damage now. And that can be a bit jarring when you're used to hitting high numbers. And so they're not really doing that with old school RuneScape. They are toning down gear, but it's very like minor. And we will adapt. We will be okay. Anything else more about Magic before we move on to the other stuff that they're going to be revisiting? Next up is the Soul Reaper Axe. The Soul Reaper Axe, I haven't used it yet, but gosh, am I going to be excited to use it, because it looks like a very cool weapon. It's very different than other weapons that we have in this game. Well, we're starting to see other weapons that are being a little bit more unique like this, but the Soul Reaper Axe is kind of cool because it is a slow weapon, but as you attack with it, what is it? It speeds up. Isn't that how that works? It speeds up a little bit with every attack, and you can grow these stacks, and you can consume the stacks to like do more damage. And I think you get to heal yourself a little bit, because I'm pretty sure you hurt yourself when you charge up the stacks. Anyways, it does some kind of cool stuff like that. It's not like your typical weapon where you're just attacking with it and then you do a spec every now and then. It actually has like a different strategy to it where there's a benefit for attacking longer with it because you want to hold those stacks and just keep doing damage. And then when you stop attacking, those stacks will disappear after some time. So they just want to make some tweaks just because like the stacks get lost pretty easily. Like if you were to switch weapons and stuff. So they want to make it, one, you're not going to be losing your stacks when you switch weapons. And they also want it so that the stacks are going to take longer to disappear. And so that's kind of cool. And the stacks are actually going to heal you when they deplete as well. Whereas beforehand, you had to use your special attack, which would consume your stacks. So it's just like a really neat weapon that you can now charge up, switch to another weapon, maybe do something crazy with that weapon, and then switch back to your axe. And you're not going to lose your stack. So that sounds really cool because this seems like a very cool weapon. I love the idea of like, I don't know, you switch to your soul axe to do like to finish them off with your special attack. It seems neat. Have you ever played with the Soul Reaper axe?
I had the Soul Reaper axe for maybe a week or so when I was grinding out Duke originally.
Oh, nice.
I think that this is a huge step in the right direction. Getting the Soul Reaper axe to where it needs to be in the game, as far as its place in the like weapon progression. Because everything that like all the reasons why I bought it and then sold it very quickly afterwards is kind of what they're describing. Like you felt like you couldn't use your specs anymore. You were having to like camp low health, which for Duke was okay, but when you took the Soul Reaper to pretty much the only other place that it's really good is Vardorvis. It's like I did not want to camp 50 hit points at Vardorvis because you take so much damage there. Yeah. But I can't get too number crunchy. But everything that they're proposing is a great step in the right direction. I think there's probably still some little things that maybe need a little tweaked on it just to get it right to where it needs to be. I don't know. It's such a unique weapon, and I want it to be great. Like I kind of like the Venator bow. The Venator bow feels so unique, and it has kind of its niche. AFK Slayer and Whisper are kind of the two places it's used, and maybe that's enough. But for how much of a grind that can be to get, I'd love for it to be best in slot for something. Mm-hmm. And I feel the same about the Soul Reaper, which I think if you don't have Scythe, the Soul Reaper is best in slot for a few places, which is probably what their intention was for it, kind of like bridging the gap between like a Fang or a Whip and Scythe. Once again, it's kind of filling in a gap that they saw. But yeah, no, I think I haven't seen any complaints about this. I think for a lot of people, these were almost common sense changes to the design of it. And I think that they might still have to give it a little more, twisting the knobs a little bit more to make it really where they want it to be for how much of a grind it can be to get. But no problems with what they're, step in the right direction.
I think a lot of people appreciate the uniqueness of a weapon like this compared to what what other weapons we have in the game. And I think we all just want it to be an awesome weapon that you can like bust out every now and then. And it's going to have its spot where it shines. It's not just going to be like, well, you use this until you can afford a real weapon like the Scythe. Mm-hmm. Like that feels bad. So it's that balance. So I agree. I think I'm excited to see it, all these changes and more to come with it. I'm excited to use it. I've never even used it yet, but I'm really excited to be able to get it eventually on my main, even though I'm not playing my main at the moment. Anywho, next up we have the Elder Maul. And the Elder Maul is like, boy, oh boy, Jagex really wanted the Elder Maul to feel special here because, oh, did it ever. So they made some pretty cool changes with it. Their complaint to the Elder Maul, which I think is very valid, is it's a mega rare from Chambers of Xeric, which is a PVM piece of content, but like you don't use it anywhere except for some people bring it PKing, some people use it against like, what's his face? Tecton, I think, and I think you can bring it to like the Perilous Moons, it's good there and stuff, but for it being a mega rare item, it kind of sucks. And they're like, well, let's make it like amazing. Let's make it the mega rare it deserves to be. So what they wanted to do with it is give it a special attack. Right now, the Elder Maul is just this big hammer you bust out just to bonk someone with. And I've used it in PKing, mostly on like the beta worlds. It's so much fun to bonk someone with it, so I get it. It's so much fun to bring it PKing. Just it looks cool and it just hits hard. Whew. It's a fun weapon, but that's PKing. They want to give it a special attack that's basically going to be a Dragon Warhammer spec, but better. So it's going to cost 50% energy, just like the Dragon Warhammer. It's going to have a 25% increase to accuracy, and it's going to reduce your target's defense by 35%. So it's going to be an upgrade from the Dragon Warhammer. That's crazy. But what's super crazy, it caused that item to go from 15, 20 mil up to upwards of 150 mil over within an hour. It skyrocketed in price. Some people friggin' made so much money off of it. But holy crap, did it ever shoot up in price.
It's a good day for the merchers.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't know. How do you feel about this? Is this something that you've been seeing much chatter about, or anything that you have worries about, or whatever?
I've seen some chatter from a couple of my Iron Man friends who got a Elder Maul and felt completely ripped off because it's a mega rare and are excited that maybe
it could have been a Tebow.
Now. Yeah, could have been a Tebow. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know. I guess what I've been asking myself from the Elder Maul that I've been trying to think about is the idea of I know I talk about Dark Souls a lot. We talk about Dark Souls a lot, but my favorite build in Dark Souls is the dude with the giant sword, just smashing something down. And I know that for most of the Dark Souls games, the people the best builds are these dexterity builds. And I feel like RuneScape is kind of that same game where dexterity builds, the faster DPS weapons like the whip and the blowpipe are kind of the dexterity builds of this game. And those seem to win out as far as DPS over the there's no meta where you're using a god sword or the Elder Maul is your main hand weapon with there's no meta for a slow moving, hard hitting weapon in PVM really. And I kind of wish there was. And I feel like it almost, with the Elder Maul, relegating it to another special attack weapon, just like the God Swords, just like the Dragon Warhammer, pretty much every single heavy weapon in this game, because of the way the tick system works and because of the way DPS works. I almost wish there was a way. I don't necessarily understand, I will say that, why it would be game breaking to have a weapon that had a way higher max hit, but was 7 tick. I don't know why that. I guess maybe.
I think what it could be. I'm not a number crunching guy, so it could be wrong. But to me, it feels like a slow but hard hitting weapon is either completely useless, it's kind of shit. You don't use it at all, or it's the best weapon in the game. It's one or the other. It's either the Elder Maul and you never use it, or it's the Tebow, and it is so strong.
Yeah, and that could be as simple as they might just be hamstrung by the tick system, because it could be as much as it could be as simple as if it's a 6 tick weapon, it's the most powerful item in the game, and if it's a 7 tick weapon, it's never used anywhere. It might just be that restrictive because the ticks, the attack cycle is these. I mean, in a sense, if you're going DPS, damage per second, and you're having these weapons attack on these cycles of 0.6 seconds in difference, then that's a valley of difference in an entire minute of combat or let's say a 3-minute boss fight. That's a huge amount of difference in damage, and so they might just be restricted. They can't, they can't have something attack on a 6.35 attack cycle, which is exactly where the balance needs to be. You know what I'm saying? And maybe it's just that simple. But I do I just wish we could have that feeling of, just, and it would also, I mean, I feel like for a lot of people I feel like in a sense, there's a lot of bosses where it would be nice because there's bosses where you're attacking and then having to move around and stuff. And it would, that's always, considered like DPS lost on bosses because you have, your blowpipe and your whip and stuff. But with a slow hitting weapon, you could attack and then move around a bit and get, attack again, right back on cycle. And so I don't know. I'm not against any of the stuff with the Elder Maul, but it kind of opened up a larger thing in my head of like, man, I wish there was that, just giant sword like you have in Dark Souls of just smacking people with a giant sword, smacking monsters with a giant sword.
It's kind of nice. Like the idea of like specializing is always really cool too. You're doing a raid and you're like, well, we want someone on quick DPS who's on slow DPS or whatever. And they have this like big chunky weapon. It's always fun. And people like to hit high. They like to hit like one part that's fun about the T-bow is it's fun seeing yourself hit like 60s. You're just like, whoo, that XP drop makes you feel good.
Yeah, the Ruby Bolt spec. Yeah, you hear that sound and you know you're about to hit 100. Oh man, it feels so good.
Yeah, you're like, look at those triple digits. Holy. That's great. A few other things that we're looking at as well is the Inquisitor's mace and the Inquisitor's armor. Right now, people say, or the problem is that the mace it's quite expensive, but it's like kind of a side upgrade. It's not really used for a whole lot of stuff unless you're like running CMs at Chambers of Xeric or like very specific things. And we're gonna get into it in a minute, but the effort it takes to grind out Inquisitors, it's like they want to make it more useful. They don't want Inquisitor's armor just to be paired with the scythe, which is like what it usually is. So they're going to give a bit of a buff to having like full Inquisitors with the mace equipped, which is kind of cool. I like set bonuses, so I'm down for it. How do you feel about set bonuses?
I have probably a controversial opinion on this.
Let's go.
But I guess I'll go out on a limb and just say I think that having the scythe have a crush attack makes as much sense as the fang having a slash attack. And
true.
I think it's super weird that that's the meta, and I think it would make way more sense for the Inquisitor's mace with the Inquisitor's armor to completely outperform the Inquisitor's armor with the scythe on crush.
How does the scythe work with a crush? Do you spin the blade around and you hit it with the butt or something? Like what is going on there?
It's from a physical standpoint, I think it makes more sense to slash with the fang than it does to crush with the scythe. Yeah, it is kind of goofy, but that's really hard to have a conversation about because we finally feel like we're getting the scythe to the kind of level of the shadow and the T-bow to where it's, it feels like the best melee weapon in the game, which is what they want it to be. But it does that crush thing is kind of goofy, I think. And I feel like it's really interfering with the kind of crush meta.
It's weird.
But yeah,
scythe, by the way, scythe is a farming tool. It's not really even a weapon. So
yes, but the scythe is a weapon as far as the looks and the use of it is so cool. So yeah, I won't take that away from them. Cool. But yeah, it feels like a slashing weapon in the same way that, a fang feels like a stabbing weapon. And I do think it's weird that it has a crush bonus. And I feel like that would open up that kind of reward space. But if that did happen, if they did give it the kind of the fang treatment where they take away its additional attack style, then we're back in the days of the 300 mil scythe, and it would, nobody's going to want it anymore. And it's not going to feel like an ultra mega rare weapon. And so I don't know, that's kind of a no-win scenario, but it does feel like when you're trying to balance the Inquisitors and stuff, you have kind of this massive elephant in the room. Just like the conversation is almost identical to when we were talking about with the Fang, why the Fang needed to be changed, because it was like, well, you can slash and hit every single time with the Fang, so why wouldn't you use it everywhere?
Yeah. Oh boy. Well, I hope they're gonna figure it out. Next up. Oh, sorry.
I was just there's no way that'll happen, by the way, that they'll take that away, because they've worked so hard to get the They've worked so hard to get it where it is. So I'm not really pushing for that, and I don't think it'll happen. But that's just my thoughts on it.
Goofy though.
Yeah.
There's a few things that are a little bit goofy where you're like,
Yeah.
that's odd. But anyways, like how do you crush with an axe? Is that just like, anyways, whatever. You can do that though. So this is what I thought was the most controversial. But I'm not super in tune to Reddit as I used to be, which is actually probably a net positive. But
absolutely,
we miss out on all the hot takes at times. So this is having to do with the drop rates, kind of what I'm talking about before, where you get to these like grinds and you're just like, okay, it's going to take me a few weeks before I even get a glimpse at happiness from this game. It seems like, but one of the ones, and this is one of the reasons I don't play. I never wanted to play an iron, even though I'm playing a restricted one right now. It doesn't make sense in my head because I still have to grind this item out, but. Anyways, don't ask. It makes sense to me somehow, but playing in regular iron doesn't because of this. But I was always worried about grinding out the friggin' Dragon Warhammer because it's a 1 in 5,000 drop from shamans, Lizardmen shamans. I don't like killing 10 Lizardmen shamans, so killing 5,000 just to hit rate, like kind of sounded like the worst time ever. So then I'm like, well, I'm just not going to play an Iron Man. I'll just buy one on my main. But now I'm playing a restricted one. I'm going to have to grind it eventually, but like I said, it doesn't make sense. But they want to actually take a look at some of these drop tables. They want to reduce it. So one of them is the Dragon Warhammer. So instead of it being 1 out of 5,000, they want to drop it from 1 out of 3,000. Now, a lot of people say that's great, but that's still a crazy amount of kills. And once you get to that level of kills, 5,000, 3,000 kills, it feels like it can be kind of common to go dry and not get it on rate because there's just so many you need to kill. I guess like probability wise, you're just as likely to get it early. But when you do go dry, it must feel really, really bad. You know, we've had some people in the clan who went like 36,000 kills dry. 5,000 kills is what's expected, but they go 36,000. I've known irons who quit playing because they can't get the Dragon Warhammer, and people kept chirping them when they went to raids, and they're bringing out their like Bone Dagger or their like Arclight or BGS. I know people who quit because they weren't able to get it, and they're like, I'm not willing to kill this thing more than 5,000 times because this is just like not fun. So that's one of the ones they want to drop. They drop down, and the other one they want to look at is the Nightmare of Ashiyama, or Fasani's Nightmare. This for a long time, people have been like, why the hell? Why is this in the game? The problem is the drops on average suck. You get like Bass or like 5K or like 10K worth of runes. And then every now and then you might get a unique item, but it is insanely rare to get an item. Insanely rare. So rare that people have been saying on average, it can take up to 1,900 hours to get every unique from the Nightmare. 1,900 kills. That is a lot. You gotta remember, there's like 3 staffs you're grinding out, and then there's 3 armor pieces, and then there's the Inquisitor's mace. So they were looking at reducing those as well. Because 1,900 kills is 1,900 hours expected drop rate is pretty insane. And now this is mostly for irons because if you're a main, you can just go and buy yourself those uniques. But still, now with the collection log, we like to green log stuff, so it still affects everyone this way. Okay, so let's go down this rabbit hole momentarily of these drop rates and these incredibly long grinds and whether they should be reduced, or or even look at why do we even have them in the first place? Do you have any idea? Trey, I know you weren't designing them, but like, what are your thoughts on these drop rates that we have? And the fact that they want to reduce it and all this sort of stuff.
It's such a hard question. I don't know. I don't know if I have a good answer for this because I do think it's insane to have certain expectations of drop rates for things, but I think one of the things that makes this conversation so difficult is the fact that without it's almost a no-win situation, because if you lower the drop rate for something, then more people are going to have it and the value of the item is going to go down. And so you're almost left with the question of, do you feel better about grinding 100 hours for a 100 mil item or grinding 10 hours for a 10 mil item? And it can be, it's almost just a byproduct of, when I was saying earlier about the people who do, there are people who play this game for 10 hours a day and they play super efficiently and they get a ton of these big drops, and the economy of the game is affected by that. And obviously, we try not to go too deep into it, but obviously botting, that's just something that's there. It's always going to be there, but it does affect these things. And so I think that it's hard. I think the problem that Jagex is faced with is that if they make these items common, that if they make it too common, not even common or uncommon, it's the price, like the GE price of the item. Obviously, I'm talking only for the mains, but the GE value of an item is going to be based on how many people get those as drops. So if they make it so more people get those as drops, then that's going to make those items less valuable. So is it going to feel better to get those as drops when they're less valuable? It has that kind of rubber band effect. If we are accommodating for Ironmen, then the conversation is completely different. Because if I'm going to grind 200 hours for a kind of niche defense reducing special attack weapon, then it makes a lot of sense to reduce the drop rate for that, especially now that technically it won't be the best in slot because of the Elder Maul. And so that gets into a very hairy area of this game where we're talking about updates specifically for Iron Man, which some people completely believe is something that should never happen. And I believe Jagex is on record as saying that they would never have updates personalized for Iron Man. But I
think that ship has sailed though.
Yeah, I think
we've seen a handful of them, and
for
Iron
sure.
Man is so popular. I don't think anyone ever expected to be as popular as it is.
I think I'm struggling because I am kind of a new convert. I'm that guy who just converted to Jesus and is telling everybody about it and is super on fire for it because I am new to this Iron Man life. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm legitimately thinking like this is the way the game should be played. This should be the only version of the only game mode in the game, kind of a thing. Like I'm that passionate about it right now, but I'm fully aware that
instantly become an extremist.
Yes, exactly. And I'm fully aware of that. Like I'm self-aware that that's an extreme position, and I'm not pushing that idea forward because I know that
You're
I'm new
protesting
to it.
all other game modes to be removed from the game constantly.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not doing that because I know that I'm going to get to the Dragon Warhammer grind and I'm going to say, fuck this. I want to buy it. But yeah, it is when you're talking about Iron Man, which it is from a drop rate standpoint, it is much more pure of I have to kill this boss to get this drop to get this item. Obviously you can do the same thing on a main, but you also could just buy it. And with a main, you have to take into account every other main who is killing that boss and getting that drop and what the kind of meta value of that item is based on how many of them there are in the game, based on the supply and based on the demand. If you're an Iron Man, the supply is you killing the boss and the demand is you getting the item. So it is much more kind of straightforward. And if you're looking at it from that straightforward perspective, you can say, literally, this is the average hours it takes to get the Dragon Warhammer versus what is the value to your account of having a Dragon Warhammer. And from that logic, once again, especially with the Elder Maul kind of potentially taking the best in slot place, it doesn't make sense to grind. We had someone in our clan who kind of famously went to, I believe, 32,000 KC for a Dragon Warhammer. And that is insane. That's so much. For once again, a defense lowering spec weapon. It is, there are people who won't run Theater of Blood with you if you don't have a Dragon Warhammer. So like it is useful, don't get me wrong, but there's hundreds of hours invested in this. And so, yeah, I'm on board with lowering the drop rates for stuff like that. I do also think for mains, it is kind of a no-win scenario because the lower the drop rate is, the lower the price is, and the higher the drop rate is, the higher they had that recently. You were talking about those Chaos Druids. That teleport scroll was 1 in 20,000, and it's such a niche use, but it still was worth like 7 mil because it's so rare. If they made that a 1 in 1,000 drop, it would be, probably 100K for that item. So the people who get spooned on that get a lot of money. So I'm kind of talking
how expensive the Third Age pick is. It's like 10 bill because of how rare it is. And that's not even useful, really.
Yeah.
Not really useful at all.
So yeah, I guess I'm kind of talking in circles, but I think it is kind of circular. The logic is circular. The more rare it is, the more valuable it is. And so does it feel good to get, and then we come back to kind of that Vorkath versus Bandos conversation. Is it feel better to get, a decent drop every time like at Vorkath, or does it feel better to get something that's more rare but more valuable? And that in a lot of ways goes person to person. So yeah, it's just such a hard conversation. It's such a hard way to know.
It is tough, and it's like there's a lot to balance, but then there's also that like it is pretty crazy that Jagex was like, yeah, let's put something with this insane of a drop rate. Like, oh, excuse me. It's like almost 2,000 hours to get a full set of something. I'm playing The Witcher right now. I'm like 50 hours into it. There's no way I could I think I would complete the game like 10 times with 2,000 hours amount put in. Maybe that's not true. I haven't really gotten too far, but you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's nuts. So I'm glad that they're looking at it. Oh my gosh, I got something in my throat. I'm glad that they're looking at it though, because I think they're realizing that like they need to be mindful. They can't just put these toxic grinds in, and then you will get people grinding it. No matter what the drop rates are, probably people are going to grind it if it's useful. And then when you do make these changes, you're going to have people upset because they wasted 2,000 hours grinding out full Inquisitor or green logging Nightmare. And then you're dropping them and they're like, whoa, what the hell? Now, they're basically cutting the time in half at Nightmare specifically. So everything's going to be about half, 50% chance more likely to get it. But that still means you're almost at 1,000 hours to green log the Nightmare. And a lot of people saying that's just not enough. 1,000 hours is still too much. But what can you do? Holy shit, someone's crashing me at friggin' Sandcrabs again. That's the second time this episode. Oh my God, I'll just pretend to be AFK.
It's the Wild West out there.
Man, people don't even care. It's so annoying. They just like stand on you, and then you both stubbornly just don't say anything and just pretend. We both pretend to be AFK for like 15 minutes until the aggression timer runs out, and then we're just like, fuck it. But anyways, yeah, back to Nightmare. Yeah, these drop rates are nuts. So a lot of chatter going on about it, and actually, there's this new system that's been being pitched by people on Reddit, and it caused some discussion. It's called basically dry protection, and they were saying, what if? And this is something that's been talked about on the show before, but what if the chances of getting a unique shoot up once you hit the drop rate? What if once you hit 3,000 kills and you haven't seen a Dragon Warhammer? What if now suddenly you have you're 2 times as likely to get the drop rate? And then that becomes exponential. So as you go dry, the chances of getting that unique become higher and higher and higher. So you can get to a point where, yeah, you might be 10 times dry, but you're like at a 99% chance at getting the Dragon Warhammer every single kill. That's a hyperbole, but like, you know what I mean? Like, they're making it, not that it's easier to get items. I mean, essentially they are doing that, but they're making it so that you don't have to go super over the drop rate, which when you have something that's like 1 out of 3,000 to get a kill or 1 out of 5,000, going over drop rate just feels that much worse. A lot of us are expecting when you have that many to kill, oh man, I better see something before then. But I don't really understand statistics a whole lot, but it's something like a 60% chance, 65% chance at getting the drop when you're halfway to the drop rate. So Dragon Warhammer is 1 out of 3,000. Once you hit 1,500 kills, you had a 60% chance at getting the drop in that 1,500 kills. I don't understand the math, but I remember reading that on or watching some statistics video. It's very confusing. I don't understand how that works, but apparently it does. So, yeah, you can fact check me on that one. What do you think about dry protection?
I don't.
Good for the game or the worst thing ever?
I don't know what I think about it, to be honest with you. It's such a hard, yeah, I won't lie that the initial, I won't lie that my initial response is along the lines of it feels completely antithetical to the spirit of RuneScape. That's my gut reaction. I call myself a RuneScape boomer a lot, but it is kind of that doesn't feel like old school. That's my initial reaction. And I don't even know if I agree with that though, but it is it feels, I mean, one of the most kind of infamous moments in my mind was when they had to poll if they would increase the pet rate after people, very slightly after people hit 200 million XP in a skill. And that, if I remember right, it barely passed. There were people who were against that concept. Whereas I at the time was I would be fine if it was 100% pet rate when you hit 200 mil. If you go 200 mil without getting it.
You should get a bonus at 99. And then once you hit 200 mil, they just give it to you.
Yeah.
With a little hat too. You deserve it.
and I mean, pet rates is a completely different conversation in my mind, just because they are only cosmetic. But it's hard. I don't want to digress into the whole Iron Man thing again, but it does kind of feel like it's different when you're talking about the idea of making a little bit more money or getting the collection log slot versus getting the item that you need to progress. It does feel kind of like a different conversation. And I really don't want to turn into that guy that, is iron, I don't want to be the Iron Man messiah, the big advocate for the game should cater to Iron Man and all that kind of stuff. Even though I feel based on the community that I've seen, I feel like it is almost majority Iron Man, but I understand that it is completely different. So I've gone back and forth constantly in my head for dry protection. But I do think that when you're talking to people about dry protection, a good question to ask them is what's the driest you've ever gone? The person in our clan who I was talking about who got, went 30,000 dry for the Dragon Warhammer was in favor of dry protection. What does that say? So I do think it is kind of back to that, for the people who've never experienced that are probably going to be against it from a high level theoretical, idealistic sense. But the people who have actually experienced going obscenely dry for items probably are more in favor of it because they've actually experienced what that feels like.
I wouldn't wish this hell on anyone.
Exactly.
I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemies.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
But yeah,
I can agree with that. Yeah. It's complicated.
It's very complicated, and it does.
And again, this was just pitched by players on Reddit. This isn't Jagex is talking about it at all.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's a super interesting conversation though. I mean, obviously it is. It's not like this dumb Reddit thing that you just kind of brush off. It is something that could be interesting. I think I like the idea of it being in the game. I think it at a very slight, and I believe what was pitched is very slight. Yeah,
it's meant like if 1,000 people do something, 3 people might go 10 times dry, and it's supposed to prevent those 3 people from going through it.
Exactly,
I'm
yeah.
just kind of making up the numbers, but that's kind of the odds. So like for most people, you'll never be even affected by it, but it's just to prevent the 1 out of 1,000 chance that you would be that person who has to go, 10,000 kills over drop rate for something.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you go double the drop rate on something, I think you deserve whatever it is. I don't think it should be like, oh, it's just guaranteed at double the drop rate, but like it should be pretty much it should be pretty secure that you're going to get the drop by double drop rate, because we know how long double drop rate can take on some of these things, and it's kind of ridiculous. But it also, then as those words are coming out of my mouth, I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, it's hard.
It is very tough, but I'm curious to hear what other people think. Feel free to call in, speak pipe, or send us a message, because I would love to hear what other people, your thoughts on it. I want to hear your thoughts. So yeah, let us know. I'm going to speed run through these other minor changes because they're very minor, and then we'll take a break and go over to our, community. What do we call it? Community section. Anywho, Trey, we talked about this last episode, but the way combat works or damage works in old school RuneScape can be very much related to Dungeons and Dragons. So you roll once to hit, and then you roll once again to see how much damage you do, and you could still roll a 0 to do damage. So that means you're supposed to hit, but you're just unlucky enough and you hit a 0. It's still damage. You just did 0 damage. You didn't miss. They actually want to fix that. They want to make it so that you can't hit 0s anymore, so that you will just hit a 1 instead, so that you're always doing damage. And it would help for things like the Dragon Warhammer that you're expected to do damage on. So anyways, they're looking at the minimum hit adjustments. Another thing is the early game combat prayers. So, those prayers you get earlier on, they want to look at those and make them a little bit better. So kind of do some adjustments there as well, so that there's a little bit more of a benefit from using them when you're a low level, instead of, you flick on the strength prayer and then your next thing you know, your prayer is instantly drained because, yeah. Auto cast delay. Right now, when you auto cast with a staff, there's a bit of a delay when you do it versus you clicking on a spell and clicking on a monster. They're thinking about fixing that. And they're making some changes to Verzik Phase 2 in Theater of Blood. So if you're one who if you've done Theater of Blood and your teammate dies in Phase 1, you know how hard that is, because now you've lost significant DPS. And in Theater of Blood, there's a part of it where you're literally having to out damage how much she's healing. And you can definitely wipe enough players on your party that it's impossible. Well, they want to fix it. They want to make it so it'll scale down depending on what your party size is, which is nice, so that you can't get stuck in a situation where they're always out healing how much damage you do. And then they also want to do something for Toa with Baba. They want to do some tweaks there as well. Whew. Okay, Trey, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and wrap this show up.
Hell yeah.
We're taking a quick little break and heading on over to the Grand Exchange. No, I'm not putting on my jazz radio, overnight radio voice. Wife sleeping, kids napping on the couch, and if I wake them up while I'm doing this, oh boy, are we gonna hear it. Anywho, this is the Grand Exchange. So we talk about how you can help support the show and cover some of the costs that it takes to run the podcast. We really, really do appreciate it. It helps kind of take some of that burden off of us. So big shout out to our top tier supporters: Basic Pickle, Yulfi Ferric, the Sasquatch, Flarch, Splemo, and the Kazi. But of course, we have a lot of other supporters as well. So thank you guys so much for supporting the show. Like I said, it really does mean a lot. But and if you want to support this show, one of the ways to do that is by going over to patreon.com/thewildernesspodcast, where you can make a monthly pledge. But you know what? If Patreon is not your thing, some people prefer to head on over to buymeacoffee.com/dills instead of make a one-time donation. So thank you so much to Zani. Thank you so much to for that coffee there. Really do appreciate it. And last but not least, we have a Discord server. what some people decide to do is they're boosting our server and giving a few perks to that. If you want to join our Discord server, it's discord.gg/thewilderness. Type that link and it'll bring you right over to our Discord server. We just finished an event. We do a lot of fun stuff like that. So if you're interested in joining the community, that's one of the ways of doing that. But yeah, thank you so much to the people who are choosing to boost the server. At Krusty Spoon, Flourish, Kool-Aid, Myzix, Omens Bad, and Ratenda. Thank you guys so much for boosting the server. Thanks to everyone who keeps supporting the show as well. Really, really do appreciate it. All right, we made it through it. We didn't hear anything. What a successful segment. Let's get back to the show. We are back. We've been getting some messages on Discord from last episode. So the first thing is we asked everyone, what are your thoughts on like playing an Iron Man and all that sort of fun stuff? Burt Macklin wrote in, he said, I started an Iron, but there's barely any progress. I had a hard time abandoning my main because I have so much time invested into my main. And honestly, I'm still having fun with it and the grinds that I've been working on. I see the appeal of Iron Man, though, especially the early and mid-game grinds, but I'm just not ready for it yet. Eventually, I will max, so I don't want to play my Iron until at least, otherwise the goals will never be achieved as my time is very limited in real life. He's a father of 2. But maybe one day I'll dust off the old Johnny Karate and see where the grinds take me. And that's from none other than the motherfucking FBI Burt Macklin himself writing in. And I totally understand that. This game is all about moving at your own pace, which is beautiful, but having kids, and I have one, and boy, there goes your time. So I can't imagine how much time I lose with 2.
I know the phrase that we had a lot with me and some of my friends when I was talking about Iron Man stuff, we tossed around the phrase sunk cost fallacy a lot because of that, how much time I've invested in this account and just dropping it. And yeah, it is, there can be a sunk cost fallacy to that, but also I think the key thing to that entire message was that you're still having fun, and that's all that matters.
Yeah. The Iron Man is perfect when you're not having fun, but you still want to play RuneScape. Because that's something that happens with this game. It's very strange. Like, I still want to play this game, but I'm bored of my account. So then you make it.
Yeah, I love logging on and talking to my friends in the clan, and that was kind of the crossroads I came to. Is I did not want to stop playing RuneScape, but I was burned out, and so that's kind of and yeah, it worked out for me in that moment, and it worked out for me. But yeah, if you're enjoying it, I'm not coming on here being, as much as the new convert that I am. I'm not trying to say everybody should start an Iron Man.
The extremist views are coming in.
Oh man.
We had Guns Go Bang. He sent a message and he says, listening to you guys talk about the elemental rework with magic. Last week we talked about how monsters are going to be weak to air, and some are going to be weak to water, and some are going to be maybe resistant to earth. Well, he said it really much reminds him of Pokemon, where you have a lot of Pokemon that attacks are less effective or super effective on. And he also mentioned, just like Aviances, you can't really melee it. So how are you going to be able to use an earth spell, which makes a whole lot of sense. I think of, it makes sense. Very interesting. And yeah, I think that's a great way to think of it, is like the way elemental weaknesses and resistance work in Pokemon. 'Cause that's very much a thing from Pokemon to Pokemon. Let's see. Matacause1, he wrote in and made a comment about chickens, because I said that last week. Like I said, when I'm getting into this homesteading lifestyle and my ADHD, I don't know if I have it, not diagnosed, but I'm wondering, because I'm getting locked in. I want chickens. I want a garden. I make my own compost, rain barrels everywhere. We're doing it all. He said, my host family in France, when I studied abroad for a semester, had chickens, and it was awesome. They had a big enclosure in the backyard, and we got fresh eggs every night for dinner. It was fun to feed them too. It's not a pet you build a relationship with, but it's a weird feeling of teamwork, kind of like beekeeping. Love it. Music to my ears. We had a few people write in about the book I Love You Forever. Being the saddest friggin' book. I should bring it down. I should read it on the podcast and we can all cry because it's so sad. The Ultimate said, literally can't read it because I'll start choking up. which is hilarious. That is super accurate. Jamie Jr. wrote in and he says, I read it and it fucked me up for a day, which is hilarious and beautiful. Winter Split wrote in, is this the right book? Shared a cover of the book. And they said, yeah, this book hits hard, man.
I'll say that you guys were talking about that book and I was kind of like, oh, I must not know. And when he shared that picture of the cover, it like unlocked a memory because I was like, oh, you
have read it.
Yeah. When I saw the cover, I was like, oh, I remember that. That book was so weird as a little kid.
Yeah. You're like, why are we reading this? I love Robert Munch. He's the writer of it. I have a bunch of books that are just like compilations of his stories, and they're really great kids stories. But that one, yeah, we're gonna skip that one every time. Yeah. Anyways, let's do some housekeeping, and then we'll get on out of here. We'll get on out of here for the day. So, if you want to join our clan, the clan is Wild, and our Discord is discord.gg/thewilderness. Our email is thewilderness.podcast@gmail.com. And I guess I hit them all. But yeah, feel free to join our Discord, join our clan if you need a clan. We do a lot of fun events. You know, a mod in the clan has put on this PVM Slay the Spire type of event, and it's been a lot of fun all weekend. So we do fun stuff like that all the time. So feel free to join if that's something you want to partake in. Song of the week. Trey, what's your favorite RuneScape song? What's the first song that comes into your mind?
Well, for years I used the orchestral RuneScape theme song as my intro whenever we did D&D. So I love that one. I really love that RuneScape orchestral. But in the game, I really like there's the like Scape Scared and there's Escape Melancholy. I don't know why, but I've always loved those. And the my favorite of all time is I think it's Arabian 2 inside Al-Kharid. It's such a classic.
Okay. We can only choose one. Let's do the orchestral. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
Escape Main Orchestral.
Hell yeah.
That's awesome. I got my first D&D campaign coming up on Wednesday for a campaign that a few of us are starting. So very excited. That's perfect. And I was at Costco today and I heard two workers talking about Dungeons and Dragons. It's perfect. Everything's D&D these days. Oh, did you hear that? That's my wife calling me. I gotta go.
Right.
Perfect timing. Trey, any final words?
Nope.
Broadcast from master bedroom speaker. It's 3 p.m.
I don't know if you can hear that. I just got a broadcast on my smart speaker with my wife saying it's 3 p.m. That means I gotta go. Guys, thanks so much for listening. We'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
Gosh, is it more Project Rebalancing or are we done?
We'll talk about it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.